The crimson stain spread across the pristine white snow like spilled wine, and Kyle Reynolds thought at first it was a wounded deer, until he saw the delicate hand reaching upward through the drift. His breath caught in the frigid Colorado air as he spurred his horse forward, heart hammering against his ribs. The winter of 1882 had been brutal in Leadville, and folks who got caught in these storms rarely survived. Kyle had been checking his fences on the western edge of his ranch when the splash of red against white caught his attention. Now, as he dismounted and rushed forward, he could make out the form of a woman half buried in snow. "Hold on," he said, though he doubted she could hear him. Her lips were blue, her skin pale as the snow that surrounded her. Blood seeped from a gash on her temple. Kyle stripped off his heavy coat and wrapped it around her before lifting her into his arms. She was light, too light, and completely limp. He settled her across his saddle and mounted behind her, holding her against his chest as he urged his horse toward home. The ride back to his cabin seemed to take forever. The wind whipped around them, and Kyle kept checking to see if she was still breathing. Each shallow breath from her lips felt like a small miracle. He had no idea who she was or what she had been doing out in this weather, but those questions could wait. Right now, he needed to get her warm. When he finally reached his cabin, Kyle kicked the door open and carried her inside. The fire in the hearth had burned down to embers, and he quickly laid her on the floor near it while he built up the flames. Once the fire was roaring again, he carried her to his bed and began the careful work of removing her wet clothes. He kept his eyes averted as much as possible, replacing each soaked garment with his own dry shirts and sweaters, trying to preserve her modesty even in this desperate situation. Her hair was a deep chestnut color, now matted with blood and melting snow. Kyle carefully cleaned the wound on her temple. It looked worse than it was, he hoped. Head wounds always bled heavily. He wrapped it with clean bandages and pulled several thick quilts over her, then set about making hot broth. His grandmother had taught him that warming someone from the inside was just as important as warming them from the outside. For 3 days, the woman drifted in and out of consciousness, sometimes mumbling words he could not understand. Kyle stayed by her side, coaxing broth between her lips when she was awake enough to swallow, changing the bandage on her head and keeping the fire burning. He slept in fits and starts in the chair beside the bed, always ready to tend to her needs. On the 4th morning, he woke to find her eyes open and watching him. They were the color of honey, warm despite the fear he saw in them. "Where am I?" Her voice was raspy from disuse. Kyle sat up quickly, nearly knocking over the cup of water he had kept nearby. "My cabin. About 5 miles west of Leadville. I found you in the snow 3 days ago. You were nearly frozen." She tried to sit up, winced, and fell back against the pillows. Her hand went to her head. "What happened to me?" "I was hoping you could tell me that. You had a head wound when I found you." "Do you remember anything?" Her brow furrowed as she concentrated. "I was on the stagecoach. We were coming from Denver. There were other passengers." She closed her eyes. "Men on horses. They stopped the coach. Guns. Someone screamed. I ran." Her eyes flew open and tears spilled down her cheeks. "Oh God, I ran. I just ran. There was shooting behind me and I kept running through the snow. I fell and I remember the cold and then nothing." Kyle's jaw tightened. Stage robberies had been increasing in the territory and they were getting more violent. "Do you remember how long ago that was?" "It was morning when they stopped us. The sun was up." She looked at the window where weak winter light filtered through. "What day is it?" "Wednesday, January 18th. It was Saturday when we left Denver." Her voice broke. "The other passengers, do you know if they are all right?" "I have not heard anything, but I have been here with you. I can ride into town tomorrow and find out." Kyle poured water into a cup and helped her sit up enough to drink. "What is your name, Zara?" "Zara Thompson." She took a small sip of water. "Thank you for saving my life. If you had not found me, I would have died out there. I am Kyle Reynolds. This is my land, and I could not have left you there." He set the cup down. "You should rest more. You have been through an ordeal." "Wait." She caught his hand, and he was surprised by the warmth of her touch. "You stayed with me all this time. Someone had to make sure you pulled through." Something shifted in her expression, a softening around her eyes. "Thank you, Kyle." He felt heat rise in his cheeks and cleared his throat. "I will make you something to eat. You need to get your strength back." Over the next few days, Zara grew stronger. Kyle learned that she had been coming to Leadville to work as a schoolteacher. The town had been growing rapidly with the silver mining boom, and they needed someone educated to teach the children. She was 22 years old, originally from Boston, and had no family left after her parents died of influenza the previous year. "I needed a fresh start," she told him one evening as they sat by the fire. She was wrapped in quilts on the bed while he occupied his usual chair. "Boston held too many sad memories. When I saw the advertisement for a teacher in Colorado, it felt like a sign." "Leadville is rough," Kyle warned. "It is not like Boston. The miners can be rowdy and the winters are harsh." "I gathered that." She smiled, touching the bandage on her head. "But I am not afraid of hard work or rough conditions. I want to make a difference." Kyle found himself admiring her courage. She could have given up after what happened to her, could have demanded he take her back to Denver on the next stage. Instead, she still wanted to fulfill her commitment to the town. "I will take you into Leadville when you are well enough," he said. "I need to report what happened to you to the sheriff anyway. Maybe someone knows something about that robbery." "I keep thinking about the other passengers," Zara said quietly. "I should have stayed. I should have helped them." "You did what anyone would do. You survived." Kyle leaned forward. "Do not carry guilt for that." She met his eyes, and he felt something pass between them, an understanding that went deeper than words. In that moment, Kyle realized how much he enjoyed her company, how the cabin that had felt perfectly adequate for a solitary man now felt warm and alive with her in it. The following week, Kyle decided Zara was well enough for the trip to town. He hitched up his wagon and made a comfortable seat for her with blankets. The ride to Leadville took about an hour, and Zara stared wide-eyed at the bustling mining town that emerged from the mountain landscape. Leadville sat at over 10,000 feet elevation, the highest incorporated city in North America, and it showed in the thin air and the way snow seemed to cling to everything. The main street was crowded with miners, merchants, gamblers, and women in bright dresses standing in doorways. Saloons seemed to occupy every other building, and the sound of piano music drifted from several establishments even though it was barely noon. "It is certainly lively," Zara said, clutching the edge of the wagon seat. "That is one word for it." Kyle guided the wagon toward the sheriff's office. "Stay close to me. Some of these men have not seen a respectable woman in months." The sheriff, a grizzled man named Tom Patterson, listened to Zara's story with a grim expression. "We heard about that robbery. 5 dead, including the driver and the guard. The bandits made off with a strong box that was supposed to be carrying mine payroll." Zara's face went white. "5 people died." "Yes, madam. We found the coach 4 days ago. Figured everyone was accounted for, but there was a lot of blood and confusion at the scene." "Did not realize someone had run off." Patterson looked at Kyle. "Good thing you found her when you did." "Do you have any leads on who did it?" Kyle asked. "Working on it. There is a gang that has been hitting stages between here and Denver, call themselves the Red Canyon Boys. We will catch them eventually." Patterson turned to Zara. "You are lucky to be alive, Miss Thompson. Those men do not usually leave witnesses." Kyle felt a chill run through him. If they knew Zara had survived, would they come looking for her? After leaving the sheriff's office, Kyle took Zara to meet Mrs. Alina Hartford, the woman who had arranged for the schoolteacher position. Mrs. Hartford was a stout woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. "My dear girl," she exclaimed when she saw Zara's bandaged head. "We heard about the robbery but thought everyone had perished. This is a miracle." "Thanks to Mr. Reynolds," Zara said, glancing at Kyle. "He saved my life." "Well, we are grateful to you, sir." Mrs. Hartford invited them into her parlor. "Now, Miss Thompson, we still very much need a teacher. The children have been without proper schooling for 2 months, but you must be recovered first. Do you have somewhere to stay?" Kyle spoke before he could think better of it. "She can stay at my place until she is fully healed. It is too soon for her to be on her own." Zara looked at him in surprise. "I could not impose on you further." "It is not an imposition." Kyle met her eyes. "You need more time to recover. My cabin is quiet and warm. Once you are stronger, Mrs. Hartford can help you find proper lodgings in town." "That seems sensible, Mrs. Hartford agreed. "Though we must be mindful of propriety, perhaps I could visit regularly to serve as chaperone." "That would be appreciated," Zara said, though Kyle noticed a slight smile playing at her lips, as if she found the concern for propriety amusing given that he had been caring for her alone for over a week. They left town with supplies, including fabric for a proper dress for Zara since her clothes from the stage had been ruined. Kyle also bought her a warm coat and boots. She protested the expense, but he insisted. "Consider it an investment in Leadville's future teacher," he said. On the ride back to the cabin, Zara was quiet. Kyle glanced at her several times, noting the thoughtful expression on her face. "What are you thinking about?" he finally asked. "How strange life is. A week ago, I thought I was going to freeze to death in the snow. Now I am riding through these mountains with a man I barely know, feeling safer than I have in months." She turned to look at him. "You are a good man, Kyle Reynolds. I just did what anyone would do." "No," her voice was firm. "Not everyone would have stopped. Not everyone would have stayed by my bedside for days. Not everyone would have opened their home to a stranger. You did all that. That makes you more than just anyone." Kyle felt warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with the winter sun. "You are easy to help, Zara Thompson." Over the following weeks, a comfortable routine developed. Kyle taught Zara about ranch life, showing her how to care for the horses, how to read the weather, how to survive in this harsh landscape. She was a quick learner, eager to understand everything about her new home. In the evenings, they would sit by the fire and talk. Zara told him about growing up in Boston, about her parents and her education. She had attended a women's college, something that impressed Kyle greatly. She spoke of literature and history, of dreams she had harbored for the future. Kyle shared his own story. He had come west from Kansas 5 years ago, looking for land of his own. He had worked in the mines for 2 years, saving every penny until he had enough to buy this property. The ranch was small but growing. He had cattle and horses, and he was making a decent living. "Why did you not marry?" Zara asked one evening. "Surely a man like you has had opportunities." Kyle stared into the fire. "Never found the right woman, I suppose. Ranch life is hard. Most women want more than what I can offer." "What can you offer?" The question was soft, curious. "Honest work. A simple life, mountains and sky and quiet." He looked at her. "Not everyone wants that." "I think it sounds wonderful," Zara said. "Not simple exactly, but real, meaningful." Their eyes met, and Kyle felt his heart skip. He was falling for her, he realized. Somewhere between finding her in the snow and these quiet evenings by the fire, she had become more than just a woman he was helping. She had become essential, but she was meant to be a teacher in Leadville. She had come here for a purpose, and he could not ask her to give that up for a ranch hand who barely had enough to get by. Mrs. Hartford visited twice over the next month, always with a basket of food and gossip from town. She seemed pleased with Zara's recovery and pronounced her ready to begin teaching. "The children are getting wild," Mrs. Hartford said. "We need you in that schoolhouse, dear." Zara agreed to start the following week. Kyle helped her move into the boarding house that Mrs. Hartford had arranged. It was a clean room with a comfortable bed and a view of the mountains. Zara stood at the window looking out. "I will miss the quiet of your cabin," she said. "You can visit whenever you want." Kyle set down her trunk. "It is not far, Kyle." She turned to face him. "I do not know how to thank you for everything you have done. You gave me my life back. You do not need to thank me." He wanted to say more, wanted to tell her how much she had come to mean to him, but the words stuck in his throat. Instead, he tipped his hat. "I will see you around, Zara." He left before she could respond, before he could do something foolish like beg her not to go. The cabin felt unbearably empty that night. Kyle had gotten used to Zara's presence, to the sound of her voice and her laughter. He tried to tell himself it was for the best. She deserved a better life than what he could give her. Zara threw herself into teaching. The schoolhouse was a simple wooden building with rows of benches and a pot-bellied stove that barely kept the cold at bay. Her students ranged from 6 to 14, children of miners and merchants who were hungry for education. She loved the work, but something felt incomplete. She found herself thinking about Kyle constantly, wondering what he was doing, missing their conversations by the fire. Several times, she started to ride out to his ranch but talked herself out of it. He had made it clear when he left her at the boarding house that their time together was over. 3 weeks after she started teaching, Kyle came into town for supplies. He stopped by the schoolhouse, standing in the doorway as Zara conducted a lesson on geography. The children noticed him first, their attention wandering. Zara turned and saw him, and her heart leapt. He looked good, though perhaps a bit thinner than she remembered. His dark hair needed cutting, and there was something in his eyes that made her chest ache. "Class dismissed for the day," she said. The children needed no further encouragement, grabbing their coats and rushing out into the afternoon. "Hello," Kyle said when they were alone. "Hello yourself." Zara came down the aisle toward him. "I have not seen you in weeks, been busy with the ranch, calving season." He turned his hat in his hands. "How are you? How is teaching?" "Good. The children are wonderful. Some of them are so bright, Kyle. They just need someone to show them what they can do." "I am glad." He seemed about to say something else, then thought better of it. "I should go." "Wait." Zara reached out and caught his arm. "Have dinner with me, please. I have so much to tell you." They ate at the hotel restaurant, one of the few respectable establishments in Leadville. Over roast beef and potatoes, Zara told him about her students, about the progress they were making, about her plans for a spring recital. Kyle listened, adding comments here and there, but Zara could tell something was weighing on him. "What is wrong?" she finally asked. "Nothing is wrong." But he would not meet her eyes. "Kyle, I have lived in your home. I have seen you every day for weeks. I know when something is bothering you." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I miss you. The cabin feels wrong without you in it. I know I have no right to say that. You have your life here, your work, but I had to be honest." Zara's breath caught. "You miss me. Every day." Now he did look at her, and the intensity in his green eyes made her shiver. "But I will not ask you to give up what you have worked for. Teaching means everything to you." "It means a lot," Zara corrected, "but it is not everything." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I miss you too. I miss our talks and the quiet of the ranch and the way you look at the mountains like they are old friends." Zara. Her name on his lips was almost a prayer. I think I started falling for you when I first woke up and saw you sleeping in that chair beside the bed," she continued. "You could have just left me to recover on my own, but you stayed. Every day since then, I have fallen a little more." Kyle's hand tightened on hers. "I have nothing to offer you but a small ranch and a lot of hard work." "That is more than enough," she smiled. "But I cannot give up teaching either. These children need me." "I know." He stood and pulled her to her feet. "Then we find a way to make both work. I will court you properly. I will ride into town every week. And when you are ready, if you are ready, maybe you will marry me and we will figure out how to balance the ranch and your teaching." "When I am ready," Zara laughed. "I am ready now, you foolish man." Kyle's face broke into a grin and he pulled her close. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a promise of more to come. When they finally pulled apart, Zara was breathless. "I love you," Kyle said. "I have loved you since you told me you were not afraid of hard work." "I love you too." Zara rested her forehead against his. "Since you wrapped me in your coat and carried me to safety." They were married a month later in a simple ceremony at the church. Mrs. Hartford cried happy tears, and half the town came to celebrate. Zara continued teaching during the week, staying in her boarding house room while spending weekends at the ranch with Kyle. It was not a conventional arrangement, but it worked for them. The spring brought warmer weather and new challenges. Zara's students prepared for their recital, and Kyle worked from dawn to dusk on the ranch. But they made time for each other, stealing moments whenever they could. One Saturday in late April, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and purple, Zara told Kyle she was pregnant. He stared at her for a long moment, then swept her into his arms with a whoop of joy. "A baby, a baby," she laughed, holding tight to him. "Are you happy?" Happy does not begin to cover it. He set her down carefully as if she were made of glass. "Are you all right? How do you feel?" "I feel wonderful, tired but wonderful." She took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "We made a life, Kyle, you and me." "Best thing I ever did was check those fences that day," Kyle said, his voice rough with emotion. "Best decision I ever made was to stop when I saw that red in the snow." "And the best decision I ever made was to trust you," Zara replied. "To let myself fall in love with a cowboy who saved my life." As summer approached, Zara's pregnancy became obvious and she had to stop teaching. She moved to the ranch full-time, something she had been wanting to do anyway. Mrs. Hartford promised to hold the teaching position for her, though they both knew Zara might not return to it. "I think I want to teach our children," Zara confessed to Kyle one evening. "And maybe some of the ranch children whose families live too far from town. I can still make a difference without being in the schoolhouse." "You make a difference just by existing," Kyle said, kissing her soundly. The summer was glorious. Zara learned to truly work the ranch, helping Kyle with everything she could. Her belly grew round, and Kyle treated her like precious cargo, always worried she was doing too much. "I am pregnant, not fragile," she would protest. "You are carrying our child," he would reply. "I am allowed to worry." In late August, their son was born. The labor was long and difficult, with Mrs. Hartford and the town doctor in attendance. Kyle paced outside the bedroom door, nearly wearing a hole in the floor. When he finally heard the baby cry, his knees went weak with relief. The doctor opened the door, grinning. "You have a son, Mr. Reynolds, and your wife is asking for you." Kyle rushed into the room. Zara lay propped against pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in blankets. She looked up as he entered, and her smile could have lit the entire territory. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Kyle approached almost reverently. He looked down at the red, wrinkled face of his child and felt his heart expand in ways he had not known were possible. "He is perfect. We are naming him Henry, after my father," Zara said. If that is all right with you. Henry Reynolds. Kyle touched one tiny fist, marveling when it wrapped around his finger. It is perfect. Thank you, Zara. Thank you for giving me a family. Thank you for finding me, she replied. For saving me. You saved me too, Kyle said, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. I did not even know how alone I was until you showed me what it meant to have someone. The next years passed in a blur of joy and hard work. Henry grew into a sturdy toddler with his father's green eyes and his mother's curious nature. Zara did teach children from neighboring ranches twice a week in their cabin, and she loved the flexibility it gave her. Kyle's ranch prospered, and they were able to expand their land holdings. When Henry was 3, they had a daughter. They named her Rose, and she had Zara's honey-colored eyes and a disposition as sunny as a summer day. 2 years after Rose came another son, William, who was quiet and thoughtful from the moment he was born. The cabin Kyle had once occupied alone was expanded into a proper house with multiple bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a parlor where Zara could conduct her lessons. Life was full and rich, and sometimes overwhelming, but Kyle would not have traded it for anything. On their 10th anniversary, Kyle and Zara stood on the porch watching their 3 children play in the yard. Henry was 12 now, tall and responsible, helping his father with the ranch. Rose was 7, all energy and laughter, and William was 5, usually found with his nose in one of the books Zara treasured. "Did you ever imagine this?" Kyle asked, his arm around Zara's waist. 10 years ago, when I found you in the snow." "I could not have imagined anything this good," Zara admitted. "I thought I was coming to Colorado to teach. I had no idea I was coming home. You saved my life, you know." Kyle pulled her closer. "Not in the way I saved yours, maybe, but you did. I was just existing before you. Going through the motions. You taught me how to live. We saved each other then." Zara stood on her toes to kiss him. "What a lucky pair we are." That evening, after the children were in bed, Kyle and Zara sat by the fire as they had done so many times over the years. The house was quiet except for the crackling flames and the occasional sound of one of the children stirring in sleep. "I have been thinking," Zara said. "Henry will be old enough to take over more of the ranch work soon, and Rose is asking about going to school in town. What are you thinking?" Kyle could always tell when his wife had a plan forming. "What if we opened a proper school here? A boarding school for ranch children who live too far from town to attend daily. We have the land. We could build a schoolhouse and dormitories. The children could learn during the week and go home on weekends." Kyle considered this. That would be a big undertaking, but worth it. There are so many children who never get an education because their families live too remotely. We could change that. Zara's eyes sparkled with the same passion Kyle had seen when she first told him about coming to Colorado to teach. "We have been blessed, Kyle. Maybe this is a way to share those blessings. If this is what you want, we will make it happen." Kyle had never been able to deny her anything, not when she looked at him like that. They spent the next 2 years planning and building. The Reynolds Ranch School opened in the fall of 1894 with 20 students. Zara taught with the help of another teacher they hired from Denver, a young woman named Miss Sarah Collins, who reminded Kyle a bit of how Zara had been when she first arrived, full of hope and determination. The school was a success. Within 5 years, they had 50 students and had to build additional dormitories. Henry chose to attend university in Denver to study agriculture, planning to bring modern ranching techniques back to the family land. Rose discovered a talent for music and began teaching piano to the younger students. William, true to his quiet nature, became fascinated with veterinary medicine. As Kyle and Zara moved into their 40s, They watched with pride as their children grew into remarkable adults. Henry returned from university and did indeed implement new techniques that increased the ranch's productivity. He married a school teacher from town, a woman named Clara who fit perfectly into the family. They gave Kyle and Zara their first grandchildren, twin boys who were as wild as March hares. Rose surprised everyone by falling in love with a traveling musician who performed at a school recital. Despite Kyle's initial concerns, the young man proved to be hardworking and devoted. They settled in Leadville where he taught music and performed at the Opera House, and Rose ran a music school. Their daughter inherited her mother's talent and her grandfather's practical nature. William completed his veterinary training in Chicago and returned to set up a practice serving the ranches around Leadville. He married late, to a widow with 2 children of her own, and Kyle and Zara welcomed the expanded family with open arms. 25 years after Kyle found Zara in the snow, they celebrated their silver anniversary surrounded by children, grandchildren, and friends. The party was held at the ranch, with long tables set up outdoors under the summer sun. Music played, children ran wild, and the air was full of laughter. Mrs. Hartford, now quite elderly but still sharp as a tack, raised her glass in a toast. To Kyle and Zara Reynolds, who showed us all what it means to build a life together, who took a tragedy and turned it into triumph, who have given so much to this community and asked for nothing in return. May you have many more years together. Hear, hear, chorused the crowd. That night, after the guests had gone home and the house was quiet, Kyle and Zara walked out to the spot where he had found her all those years ago. They did this every year on the anniversary of that day, a pilgrimage of sorts to the place where their story began. I still dream about it sometimes, Zara admitted. The cold, the fear, the certainty that I was going to die. I dream about almost missing you, Kyle confessed, about what my life would have been if I had ridden a different direction that day. But you did not miss me. Zara took his hand. You found me. Against all odds in all that snow, you found me. Best day of my life. Kyle pulled her close. His hair was more gray than brown now, and there were lines around his eyes, but his gaze was still as intense as it had been when they first fell in love. Every day since has been a gift. We have built something good here, Zara said, looking back at their home, at the school, at the land that stretched toward the mountains. Not just for us, but for so many others. Because of you. Kyle kissed her forehead. You brought life to this place. You brought purpose. We did it together, Zara insisted. Everything we have, everything we are, we built it together. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the stars come out over the mountains. The Colorado night was cold even in summer at this elevation, but neither of them felt it. They had each other, and that was all the warmth they needed. As they walked back to the house, Zara said, "Do you ever wonder what those bandits would think if they knew how things turned out? They tried to kill me, and instead they set in motion the best thing that ever happened to me." I would rather not think about them at all, Kyle said darkly. The Red Canyon boys had eventually been caught and hanged. Sheriff Patterson had made sure to let Kyle know. They are part of the past. All that matters is the future. The future, Zara agreed. With you. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new joys and occasional sorrows. They lost Mrs. Hartford to age and then Sheriff Patterson. Kyle's cattle operation faced a harsh winter that decimated the herd, but they rebuilt. Zara had a health scare that terrified Kyle, but she recovered. Through it all, they faced everything together. On their 40th anniversary, their family had grown to include 15 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. The ranch school had educated over 500 students, many of whom had gone on to college or successful careers. The Reynolds name was respected throughout Colorado. Kyle was 70 years old now, still working the ranch though Henry had taken over most of the day-to-day operations. Zara was 62, still teaching a few classes at the school though younger teachers handled most of the instruction. Their children urged them to slow down, to rest, but neither of them was interested in stopping. "We will rest when we are dead," Zara told Rose with a laugh. "Until then, there is too much living to do." One spring morning, Kyle convinced Zara to ride with him up into the high meadows. It was something they had done regularly when they were younger but had not managed in recent years. The ride was longer than Kyle remembered, and he could feel his age in his bones, but the sight of Zara on horseback, her hair now silver but her eyes still bright, made him feel young again. They reached the meadow where wildflowers were just beginning to bloom. Kyle spread a blanket and they sat, looking out over the valley where their ranch stretched below them. "I have loved you for 40 years, Kyle said, "and I will love you for however many more we have. We have had a good run, have we not?" Zara leaned against his shoulder. "Better than I ever dreamed possible. The best." Kyle wrapped his arm around her. "You know what I think about sometimes? That moment when I saw your hand in the snow. What if I had looked away a second earlier? What if I had taken a different path? But you did not. Fate put us in each other's paths for a reason." Zara turned to look at him. "I believe that. I believe we were meant to find each other." "Meant to save each other," Kyle corrected. "Yes, that too." She kissed him gently. "I would do it all again, you know. Every hardship, every struggle, every moment of fear or pain. I would endure it all again for this, for us. As would I." Kyle held her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling the steady beat of her heart against his. "As would I." They sat there until the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Below them, they could see smoke rising from the chimneys of their home, could imagine their family gathered for dinner. Rose would be at the piano, playing for the grandchildren. Henry would be discussing the day's work with his sons. William would be telling some story about an ornery mule or stubborn cow. Their whole world was down there, a world they had built together from nothing but love and determination. "Ready to go home?" Kyle asked finally. "Always." Zara stood and helped him to his feet. "As long as you are there, anywhere is home." They rode back as the stars came out, taking their time, savoring the cool evening air and the companionable silence that came from years of knowing each other completely. When they reached the house, they could hear laughter and music spilling out into the night. Rose met them at the door. "There you are. We were starting to worry. Dinner is ready." "Just taking the long way home," Zara said, exchanging a smile with Kyle. That night, after the family had eaten and the grandchildren had been put to bed, after the dishes were washed and the house had grown quiet, Kyle and Zara lay in their bed, the same bed where Zara had first woken after Kyle found her. "You remember the first time you saw me?" Zara asked. "I thought you were a deer," Kyle admitted with a chuckle. "Just a splash of red in the snow. Then I saw your hand reaching up and my heart stopped. My last conscious thought before you found me was that I was going to die alone in the cold. The next thing I knew, I was warm and safe, and there was this handsome cowboy taking care of me." Zara rolled over to face him. "I knew right then that everything was going to be all right." "Was it? All right, I mean." Kyle traced the line of her jaw with his finger. "It was better than all right. It was perfect." Zara caught his hand and pressed it to her heart. "You were perfect." "I am far from perfect. Perfect for me then," she yawned. "I love you, Kyle Reynolds, today, tomorrow, and always." "I love you too, Zara Reynolds, my wife, my partner, my everything." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, just as they had done for 40 years. The mountain wind whistled around the house. but inside all was warm and peaceful. Years later, when Kyle was 78 and Zara was 70, they still lived in their home on the ranch. Their children worried about them, urged them to move to town where they would be closer to doctors and help, but they refused. "This is where we belong," Zara said firmly. "This is where our story is." One winter morning, after the first heavy snow of the season, Kyle woke to find Zara already up and standing at the window. "Look," she said when he joined her. "It looks just like it did that day." Kyle wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and looked out at the pristine white landscape. She was right. The world was covered in fresh snow, beautiful and treacherous in equal measure. "Hard to believe it has been almost 50 years, he said. 50 years since you found me. 50 years since everything changed." Zara turned to him. "If I could go back and change anything, do you know what I would do?" "What?" "Nothing. I would change nothing. Because it all led here to this moment, to this life with you." Kyle felt tears prick his eyes. "I feel the same." They spent the day together, just the two of them, reminiscing about their life, looking through old photographs, reading letters their children had sent over the years. It was a perfect day, simple and quiet, filled with the kind of contentment that only comes from a life well lived. That evening, as they sat by the fire, Zara suddenly said, "I want to go out to the place where you found me, one more time." "Zara, it is cold out there and dark. Please, I need to see it." Kyle could never deny her anything. He bundled her up in her warmest coat, and they walked out into the night. The snow crunched under their boots, and their breath created clouds in the frigid air. When they reached the spot, marked now by a small stone cairn Henry had built years ago, Zara stood quietly for a long moment. "This is where I began," she said finally. "Not when I was born in Boston, but here. This is where I truly started living." "This is where I found the missing piece of my heart," Kyle replied. Zara took his hand and they stood together. Two elderly people who had loved each other through nearly half a century of life's joys and sorrows. Above them, the stars wheeled in their eternal dance, and around them, the mountains stood as they always had, silent witnesses to the passage of time. "Ready to go back?" Kyle asked. "Yes." Zara squeezed his hand. "Let us go home." They walked back to the house together, their steps slow but steady. Inside, the fire was warm and welcoming. They settled into their usual spots, Kyle in his chair and Zara on the couch with her knitting, comfortable in the silence that spoke of decades of companionship. "Kyle," Zara said after a while. "Yes, love, thank you for everything. For finding me, for loving me, for building this life with me. Thank you." "No." Kyle got up and moved to sit beside her. "Thank you. You made me into the man I always wanted to be but never knew how. You gave me purpose and joy and more love than I ever deserved. Thank you, Zara." They kissed, soft and sweet, a kiss that held 48 years of marriage and love. When they pulled apart, Zara rested her head on Kyle's shoulder. "Whatever comes next," she murmured, "we face it together." "Always together," Kyle agreed. They sat that way until the fire burned low. Two souls who had found each other against all odds and built something beautiful from that first moment of rescue. Outside, fresh snow began to fall, covering the world in white. But inside the Reynolds house, all was warm and full of love. On their 50th wedding anniversary, the whole family gathered for a massive celebration. Children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren filled the house and spilled out into the yard. Former students of the ranch school came from all over Colorado and beyond to honor the couple who had made such a difference in so many lives. Kyle and Zara stood together on the porch, overwhelmed by the outpouring of love. Henry made a speech about his parents' dedication to family and community. Rose sang a song she had written especially for them. William presented them with a leather-bound book filled with letters from everyone whose lives they had touched. When it was Kyle's turn to speak, he looked at Zara and said simply, "50 years ago, I found this woman in the snow. I thought I was saving her life, but the truth is, she saved mine. Every day since has been a gift. Thank you, all of you, for being here to celebrate with us." Zara added, "We have been blessed beyond measure, not just with each other, but with all of you. You are our legacy, our joy, our proof that love can conquer anything. Thank you for being part of our story." That night, after everyone had gone home or to bed, Kyle and Zara took one more walk to the spot where he had found her. It was a warm summer night, nothing like that frozen January day so long ago. 50 years, Zara marveled. Where did the time go? Into this. Kyle gestured at everything around them, the house, the school, the land. Into our children and grandchildren, into every moment we spent together. Would you do it again? Marry me, I mean, knowing everything that would come. The hard times as well as the good. Kyle did not hesitate. In a heartbeat, I would marry you 1,000 times over. Good answer, Zara laughed, because I feel the same. They stood under the stars, holding hands as they had done so many times before. Two people who had found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances and built a love that had lasted half a century. I am not ready for this to end, Zara admitted quietly. I want more time with you. Then we will take every day we are given, Kyle replied. And we will make the most of it, just like we always have. And they did. Kyle and Zara lived on at their ranch for several more years, surrounded by the family and community they had built. They watched more grandchildren grow up, met more great-grandchildren, and saw the ranch school continue to thrive. When Kyle was 84, he passed away peacefully in his sleep with Zara holding his hand. She grieved deeply, but found comfort in their children, and in the knowledge that they had lived a full life together, exactly as they had always wanted. Zara lived for 3 more years, spending her days surrounded by family, telling stories of the life she and Kyle had built together. She never tired of recounting how he had found her in the snow, how he had saved her life, and how in turn she had saved his. When Zara passed at the age of 73, she was buried beside Kyle on a hill overlooking the ranch. Their graves were marked with simple headstones that read, Kyle Reynolds, loving husband, father, and friend, and Zara Reynolds, devoted wife, mother, and teacher. But between the two stones, their children placed another marker, a bronze plaque that told their story. Here lie Kyle and Zara Reynolds. He found her in the snow and saved her life. She saved his heart and gave him purpose. Together, they built a legacy of love that continues through their children, grandchildren, and the countless lives they touched. United in life, together in eternity. The ranch remained in the family, passing to Henry and then to his children. The school continued to operate, educating generations of ranch children. The story of Kyle and Zara became part of local legend, the tale of the cowboy who found a woman dying in the snow and the teacher who taught him how to truly live. And on quiet winter nights, when fresh snow covered the ground and the stars shone bright over the Colorado mountains, people said you could sometimes see 2 figures walking hand in hand across the ranch, still together, still in love, their story eternal as the mountains themselves. The Reynolds family continued to honor Kyle and Zara's memory through the years. The ranch prospered through changing times, adapting and growing while maintaining the core values the couple had instilled. The school eventually transitioned into a summer camp for underprivileged children, still providing education but in a different form, still making a difference just as Zara had always dreamed. Their great-grandchildren grew up hearing the story of how their great-grandfather had found their great-grandmother in the snow, How that single moment of compassion had changed not just 2 lives, but hundreds. It became a family touchstone, a reminder that one act of kindness can ripple out in ways we can never fully anticipate. Every year on the anniversary of that January day, when Kyle found Zara, the Reynolds family held a gathering at the ranch. They would walk out to the cairn that marked the spot, now weathered by decades of mountain weather, and they would tell the story again. The youngest generation would hear it for the first time, their eyes wide with wonder, while the older members would nod along, knowing every detail by heart but never tiring of the tale. It was a story of chance and choice, of fate and free will, of how 2 people from different worlds found each other in the vast wilderness and built something that would outlast them both. It was a story of rescue and redemption, of how saving someone else's life can save your own. Most of all, it was a love story, pure and simple, the kind of love that people dream about but rarely find, the kind that endures through hardship and celebrates in joy, the kind that builds not just a life together but a legacy that touches countless others. Kyle and Zara Reynolds had found each other in the snow on a frozen Colorado day, and in doing so, they had found their purpose, their home, and their happiness. They had saved each other in every way that mattered, and their love had become something bigger than either of them could have imagined. Their story lived on, passed down through generations, a testament to the power of compassion, the strength of love, and the truth that sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected moments. In the end, that was Kyle and Zara's greatest gift to those who came after them, not just the land or the school or the family legacy, but the reminder that love, real and true and lasting, is always worth fighting for, always worth celebrating, and never, ever to be taken for granted.